ในช่วงที่แล้วเราพูดกันไปถึงอดีตปัจจุบันแล้วก็อนาคตกว่าที่จะมาเป็นเว็บ3ของเรานะคะและในช่วงถัดไปเรากลับมาที่สถานการณ์ปัจจุบันกันบ้างนะคะตอนนี้หลายคนอยู่ในช่วงคริปโตวินเทอร์นะคะอากาศค่อนข้างเย็นอยู่ค่อนข้างสูงเหมือนกันนะคะเราจะมาพูดคุยกับเหล่า VC นะคะว่าเขามีการสร้างผลตอบแทนยังไงในการลงทุนจากโปรเจกต์เว็บ3นะคะแล้วก็วิธีการลงทุนในไซเคิลนี้เนี่ยเขาจะลงทุนยังไง VC มีวิธีพิจารณายังไงว่าการลงทุนในช่วงตลาดแบบนี้ควรดูอะไรหรือว่าควรลงทุนแบบไหนและไม่ควรลงทุนแบบไหนนะคะวันนี้เราได้รับเกียรติจากเหล่า VC ระดับโลกนะคะที่จะมาพูดคุยกันในเซสชันนี้สำหรับ VC Investment Strategy in Crypto Winter นะคะเจาะลึกกลยุทธ์การลงทุนของเหล่า Venture Capital ชื่อดังในตลาดนี้ค่ะSo all, please welcome Mr. Wego C, co-founder Blocktempo, Mr. Joseph Young, Senior Associate Hashed, Mr. YJ Portfolio Growth DeFiance Capital, and Mr. John Russell, partner at Crypto.com Capital. For this session, Mr. Wego will be the moderator, so please give them a big round of applause.
Hi guys, this is Wego from Blocktempo. Very happy to be here in Thailand, feeling the vibe here and meeting some OG friends downstairs and the host. And it's an honor with these well-known VC players. Yeah, so let me introduce myself before we hopping on the topics we are about to discuss. So Blocktempo is currently the largest Chinese blockchain media in the world, and we are the parent company of Entropy Group. And within the Entropy Group, we have our venture arm, and we also have our tech team, focusing on some very frontier, cutting-edge technology, for example, like Bitcoin Layer 2, Layer 3. So yeah, it's very happy to be here. I think before we start the conversation about today's discussion, I would like to ask you guys to give the very brief intro about yourself. Joseph.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Joseph from Hashed. We are a leading crypto VC in Asia, so we were early backers of Web3 gaming from the beginning, so we led things like Axie, Sandbox, Mythical Games, and Decentraland, and we continue to help innovative founders in gaming, DeFi, etc. through various categories.
Hey everyone, YJ from DeFiance Capital, cover mostly venture-related deals at DeFiance. So we are early investors into projects like Layer 0, bought Synthetics and also Aave during the bear market as well, mostly focused on application layer in Web3.
Cool. Hi guys, I'm John from Crypto.com Capital. Crypto.com's venture capital arm. We invest predominantly in token deals. We've done over 70 companies across GameFi, DeFi, infrastructure, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, thanks for your intro. I think it's very clear for everyone. I think the first topic we are about to discuss is one of the hottest one, about the FTX incidents. Because as you guys know, chaos is always a ladder. I mean, when the empire collapsed, there will definitely be a lot of opportunities appears. So, I mean, what is the huge impact about the FTX incident for you guys, and what opportunities do you guys see in this incident?
Yeah, I think the most disappointing thing about FTX is just the amount of institutional investors that invested in FTX directly, and therefore their thesis in crypto, at least in the short to medium term, might be a little compromised. They might have, maybe lessening confidence about crypto in the near term. And I think the public is also a little bit confused and maybe infuriated in the way that the mainstream media has been covering the whole FTX incident. And I think maybe that is fueling a bit more fire and controversy around the whole thing as well. So, yeah, I think perhaps at the FTX incident maybe took the crypto industry back a couple years. And, but I think, there are big players in the industry that will continue to build and continue to bring the industry forward.
Yeah, some of our portfolio companies are they also received investments from like Alameda Research or FTX. So some of their treasuries definitely got hit because some of the funds were on FTX. But I think in this current market, a lot of the valuations for venture projects, the valuation will probably come down as well because FTX wouldn't be leading at like such a high valuation. Other funds will probably be more keen to do and invest in projects at a much better valuation, in my opinion, and it's a bear market as well. Yeah, John, what are your thoughts?
I think you guys have covered it all. Really, there's not much more to say, right? I mean, I guess it's the worst part is it's not the only issue that crypto's had this year, right? You have Luna, you have 3 Arrows, and now you have this. So it's like 3 different ways that everyone got hit. And I think FTX is a bit different because even though there's a lot of attention on FTX, it was really a service that was used by folks who are already in the crypto industry. So it's like the really degen traders and folks who are really serious about crypto. So there's not, in my opinion, like a lot of retail users that were burned by FTX, but they would have been burned by Luna or something else. So it's just like, the final storm that came in. So I think, especially what the guys have said is true, and the perception of the industry has been hit, right? But actually, the people are still building products. If you already raise capital, you're in a great spot because you've got money. The market's not hot right now, so you've got time to build. I think it's much harder for the founders that are trying to raise capital now because a lot of investors that were just dipping their toes into crypto or weren't sort of super crypto confident, they're going to be less keen now. So there's just fewer sources of capital. So, the valuations are going down. But ultimately, if you're a founder and you want to build something, you've got to think about how much money do you need to get that company going rather than I want a valuation that's this or that, right? Because that kind of thinking just can't be the case now, right?
Cool. I think the conversation here is pretty interesting because like three of us, like Joseph is from Korea, South Korea, YG is from Singapore, I'm originally from Taiwan, and these 3 regions gathers most victims from FTX. So it's very interesting this conversation appears here. All right, let's hop on the next topic. I'd like to talk about the opportunity for the Asian entrepreneurs in Web3 because like a few years ago, you guys will see a lot of tier 1 VC in Web2 space in China. They invest in the crypto space and they enter this space since 2013, 2015, and 2016. Though we saw like Western VCs, they entered this space officially in the last bull run. This is actually the first time for them. So what's your thought on where's the opportunity for the Asian developers or Asian entrepreneurs in this space?
Yeah, I'm particularly quite optimistic about Asia and Southeast Asia because if you look at like the top 100 to 200 coins on the CoinMarketCap, for example, you'll find that it's geographically quite distributed. So there's a lot of Japanese companies, there's a lot of Chinese companies, and I think with the rise of Axie in Vietnam and GuildFi in Thailand, I think those companies are providing a lot of motivation to really smart technical builders in like Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore to really come into crypto. And I think the edge that Southeast Asia has is it has a really good resource of very, very, very highly technical developers, but not just developers, but like talents overall. And so I think it is easier for companies in Southeast Asia to scale the technical departments. So as Southeast Asian companies really get to scale the development side, but also begin to get help on the business development side, marketing, and really grow their communities, I think over the long term, we will see a lot of big players come out from Southeast Asia.
For Asia projects, I think one of the main benefit will be the operating costs. It's a lot cheaper to run a startup in Asia as compared to like Western projects, especially those that are based in the States. So the burn rate is a lot higher. They constantly have to fundraise throughout the bear market, and as you guys know, like the appetite is just not there. So nobody knows like how long the bear market will last. But my bet is that a lot of these Asian projects will probably last a bit longer because like their burn rate is not as high.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think when I first joined Crypto.com Capital a year ago, I was sure that founders in the West and in Europe were going to see what was happening, and we're going to, jump on the crypto train and really, build projects that they're going to change the dynamic of what we see in terms of teams, right? And that really hasn't happened. And obviously, there's some big projects like Aptos and Sui. They're trying to build these new layer one blockchains, right? But if you look at what they're doing and the BD that they're doing, it's actually in Asia. So you'd think that they're hiring or they're trying to get people from Silicon Valley to build on their chain, right? And they are. But the truth is that founders in Asia are a bit more open to this kind of stuff, right? They're more open to new ideas, to leapfrogging in some kind of way, right? And I think also one key thing is they can raise a token too, right? And obviously the market right now is not great for doing that. But if you're a US team, say building a game, right, you have to rely on equity funding all the time, and I think that's really hard, especially in this current climate, right? You want to raise $20 million, $10 million, that's really difficult. But if you want to do a token sale and raise, say, 5, actually that's a much more efficient way to get going and get off the ground. And I think we just see founders in this region that have that mindset of, okay, let me raise 2 million or 3 million and let me get going, right? And let me, get a token out there and use the token and the token treasury to build the game. Whereas in the US, it's like, you're talking about raising 50 or 60 million, right? That's a whole different kind of ball game. So I think for us, and as an early stage sort of fund, we like that scrappy and very tenacious way of getting out there and getting building as soon as you can, right?
I can't help but want to dive deeper into what you guys are saying about the cost, about the labor or something, because I think one of the beauty in working in crypto space is in the first stage of your development, you're facing the global market, right? So which means when you're hiring people, hiring talents, you're also facing the competitions between international company. So I'm quite curious about what's other advantage for the Asian entrepreneur, because based on our experience, we didn't get the advantage of spending the Asia cost to provide the Western quality. It's not like that. So I'm quite curious about, because our average cost for the labor is very we have to compete with those Western players. So.
Yeah, I think the one difference, whether you look at gaming or finance or esports, the difference between the Western market and the Asian market is that the Western market is becoming more focused on the financial side over building and actually shipping out the products. So you're going to see that in the Western market, companies are always competing against one another to ramp up the salaries and more and more and more and more. And within a very short period of time, the salary market gets super inflated. Whereas in Asia, Asian teams are more realistic about who they hire, what they do with their resources. And I think if they utilize this competitive edge in hiring and also recruiting and scaling the team, over time it's going to make a very big difference. It doesn't make a difference in 6 months' time, but if the companies last and survive, and in 3 to 5 years' time, it makes tremendous difference as they continue to raise new rounds, build a team even more so. So yeah, I think that will remain as a big advantage for teams in Asia.
Yeah, I agree. And to reiterate what John mentioned earlier, I think a lot of the projects focus their BD and marketing efforts in Asia. I think there's just a lot more people in Asia that's willing to try out different Web3 projects or upcoming games that we can look forward to in the next year. Q1, I know there are a few Web3 games that are launching. One of them is Cypher. So they're actually launching a mobile game first. And I think the total addressable market in Asia is going to be huge. Just yet to see it yet.
Yeah, I think just that. I mean, so I just came back from being in the US in San Francisco, and Web3 wise, Silicon Valley is not that epicenter like it used to be in Web2, right? And a lot of people who were living in Silicon Valley, and for whatever reason during COVID, they left and they haven't gone back, right? So I think in terms of, I guess, and this is where working in a remote team or distributed team or whatever is well suited to crypto, and there's often teams that we talk to where one founder's, in the US, one's in Europe, one's in Asia, right? It's quite common. So in terms of how that affects salaries, is that means, I guess, on a positive way, if you can build crypto products and you're in Asia, I think you can be hired by any company, right? I mean, Silicon Valley companies, they just want talent. And now that the workforce has gone, to the East Coast of the US or to Europe or even to Asia, then they're open to hiring people. And I think that bodes well because we know the best founders are people who've worked in the industry in some kind of way. They've learned from somebody else. So I think having folks in, say, Thailand or other countries that wouldn't have been able to work for a Silicon Valley company previously without having to move there, now they can get that experience and they can potentially learn and find a niche they want to scratch and start their own business. So I think that from that angle, that there's lots of positive, there's a positive future for folks who are in this region, yeah.
Understood. All right, let's hop on the next topic. So if there's a founder, entrepreneur, like freshman Web3 entrepreneur came to you guys and asked you guys about, I have a very decent project, I want to do the fundraise, they actually have multiple ways to do the fundraising, right? So what is the most efficient or, the best advice you guys would give them?
Yeah, I think when you're fundraising in this kind of landscape, you must be very, very clear with the messaging that you're providing to investors, right? So, what is your moat? What is your competitive advantage? Are you structuring the valuation correctly? Are you structuring your team correctly? Is what you're asking from investors right in this phase of investment? And I think, for example, if you're raising a seed round, I think it is no longer enough to just provide a vision and raise from investors, because if you look at the public market in crypto, there are a bunch of projects that are trading at 20, 30 million FTV that already has a bunch of users and a product, right? So you must be able to deliver more than the moat. And usually, we see in recent months that even in the seed round, founders are coming out with some kind of MVP, some kind of product, at least some kind of community, and really talking to investors and giving their message, right? And if you're in the Series A, for example, you must be able to go to investors and say, these are the milestones that we achieved in the seed round, and therefore we basically deserve to raise this round, and show the competence of the team to investors. So I think projects need to be much, much, much more strategic in the way they handle their communication with investors in this time around. And I think this will continue on for at least 2 years, in that they will need to be very, very strategic.
So you mean the beer run will last for 2 years?
Yeah.
Gotcha. YJ?
Yeah, it's definitely not easy, and not an easy market to raise now. A lot of funds I've spoken to, they are not reviewing any projects or not committing to invest in any startups until next year. That's how bad the venture market is, I guess. So everybody's kind of a wait and see approach. So it's definitely tough for a lot of first or second time founders to try raising capital as compared to about a year ago, where capital was in abundance and stuff. So I think what is the best way to raise right now would be to assemble your team. There will be a lot of talents they may have to be let go by their previous Web3 companies and stuff. So this is the time to assemble a good team, start building a product, show at least an MVP and demo to investors that they would like to receive funding from, and then move it from there, and try to explain what are they trying to solve in this space, and how they foresee this will have a product fit in the crypto industry. A lot of the DeFi protocols, like what Joseph has mentioned earlier, they are at a very depressed valuation. So we still do see a lot of DeFi protocols. They are trying to build on other chains, implementing some Ponzi-nomics, which we don't really think is sustainable. So I think a lot of funds are actually avoiding these kind of projects, because if it's a bear market, the flywheel basically will not take effect, and the project would just not be successful. So I think everybody has a lot of experience, especially this year, given the highs and the lows, and extremely careful when it comes to due diligence. So,
yeah, I think you guys have You nailed it again, right? There's not much more to add. I mean, I guess on a positive way, right? Investors are still looking for good companies, and we don't see that many of them, to be honest with you. Maybe you'll see VCs going around saying, oh, my deal flow is still great. They're probably talking shit, right? Because there's not that many deals to do. So we still want to find good companies, right? And most funds have raised money from LPs, and they have to, you know, the capital has to be spent anyway. So they're looking to spend a decent amount of money, and there's fewer deals. So the good news is that if you're building a good company, people still want to talk to you. I think with the market being how it is, 6 to 12 months ago, people were in a real hurry to launch a token and get out there while the market was still hot. At least now the market's not hot. That level of sort of hurry is kind of gone. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, founders should be thinking about how much money do we need to get 18 months or 24 months of our project so we can build MVPs and get, you know, our business going, right, to show that we've actually got traction. And I think that's the way to look at it, is instead of comparing yourself to other DeFi protocols or other projects thinking I want this valuation because of this company's doing that, think about how much money do I actually need, and then work backwards from there. Who are the kind of investors that I need? What therefore is the valuation that I'm doing on this, right? I think to take a bit more time in this market is probably good. So that's a positive part, right? Not
yeah,
too
that's
negative.
The you want to address some negative part?
I think we could do that one all day. So, and also most founders look at positives over negatives. So
Sure.
that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, that's what we have to do, right? We actually share a lot of, you know, similarities about the, you know, perspective, especially what YJ just say. We also met a lot of VC firms. They're trying to raise fund simultaneously, you know, while they're like pitching the entrepreneurs to get them on their cap table. And I also agree with what John just said. You know, if you take a look on the news, like the press release last year, you'll see a lot of VC firms just finished fundraising last year, and they actually get a lot of, you know, liquid asset, liquid US dollars to deploy. So it's pretty good for the entrepreneurs right now. Yeah, I agree with you guys. So next question is, you know, we know that don't never learn from the winners, learn from the, you know, losers. What mistakes did they make? So like based on you guys' experience, you guys definitely view a lot of, you know, do a lot of DD process and view a lot of entrepreneurs in your career, the history of your career. And what is the, you know, like the significant mistakes you think for the Web3 entrepreneurs that they need to avoid from?
Yeah, I think there are mainly like 3 mistakes. The first is when Web2 founders come into Web3, they often underestimate the competitiveness of the Web3 market. So they think, oh, you know, we have experience in building great products, and therefore we come in with a great product and, you know, it's done. But then that goes to the second mistake, which is community building, right? So Web3 is a very community building oriented sector. And when Web2 companies come into Web3, the number one thing that they struggled with is building the community and building the product with the community, right? So the prioritization in that is usually not there. And then the last one, which is the Web3 founder, the Web3 native founders that struggle with is execution. So, you know, when you get investment and when you start building product, launching the token is not execution, right? At some time you need to execute, and that means you need to get the KPIs, you need to get the users, you need to get the products out. And I think a lot of like Web3 native founders struggle with that. So yeah, I think generally founders need to be more execution and operation minded, especially in the tough times, to make it through. And those are the 3 main mistakes that founders make usually.
Yeah, I think a lot of the mistakes that I see with some of our portfolio companies would be probably on the operations related matters side of things. They often overestimate their or rather underestimate their burn rate, and eventually they need to raise another round. And in this kind of market, they can't. So they probably only can last in like 12 to 18 months. And if they have some funds in FTX, then probably they need to raise like an emergency funding. So like all these kind of like things boils down to like operation security related matters. Why as a startup are you storing in a centralized exchange instead of a custodian wallet? I think these are the kind of things that young startup founders actually don't run through in their own head. And probably in the bull market, one thing is that all these founders are trying to outbid each talent, like probably on product or front-end engineers, and the burn rate is not very sustainable. So I think in any cycle, a founder has to be very mindful of like the cost, because you can't just keep expecting that there will be more investors coming to invest in your project. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, right? Operational burn rate, these kind of things. But I think this is not just a Web3 problem, right? Web2 companies have exactly the same issue. They often estimate what they can do, right? And I think that's a normal human trait. I think in terms of pitches and founders that we see, still see a lot of projects that are interesting, but the design of the token doesn't work, or there's some fundamental, or they're trying to shove a token in there when they don't need one. I think this is still a common thing, and I think there's a level of understanding that, as I mentioned, like Southeast Asia tends to be a bit more savvy because people have often used products and they know about it. But in the States, when I was there, you see some people trying to just shove a token in, or we're raising equity, there's a token warrant. Okay, so how does a token work? We don't know yet. We'll figure it out. Like we need to actually have some idea of what we're going to be buying, right? If you're going to be doing this, so I think this is another function of the market changing, right? There's less of a hurry to get this stuff done. So as a founder, once you've raised capital, you can actually take your time and you can actually plan this stuff properly. You can, I think a lot of the operational issues that we've mentioned are because people are in such a hurry to get their product out there. So at least there's less time pressure. So hopefully some of these issues can be smoothed out a bit.
I think one of the reasons these circumstances will exist, like overestimate the burn rate and, underestimate the market condition is because, like in crypto space, like especially last year, it's very easy for an entrepreneur to raise the fund. And we even saw a lot of, just one pager, and they tried to raise like $5 million without any, POC or any MVP product. And they actually succeeded the fundraising. So it's pretty...
Yeah, that's definitely over now. You can't do that.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah, so
sure.
I was curious about, because since 2020 summer, we saw DeFi summer, right? And last year, we also saw like L1 surge and also the L2, what is the next, narratives in crypto space from your guys' point of view?
Yeah, I think generally to bring in like the next billion users into Web3, I think it would need to be something on the application layer. So personally, I'm very bullish on gaming in that regard. And to be more frank, Binance is the most utilized product in crypto, and within Binance, perpetual futures is the most utilized product as well. So I think something that mimics the behavioral aspect of the perpetual futures, something that allows people to take risks and earn big. So I think that would be in gaming and probably in the NFT space as well. So yeah, I think those two sectors would be most promising.
But bridging like what next 1 billion users, do you mean the Web3 native products application layer, or Web2 application layer, for example, like WhatsApp or Telegram? What do you mean?
Yeah, I think that, so I think that's where this thesis comes in, where I think that in the middle, it'll be a Web2 player that comes into Web3 that brings so many users into Web3 that'll be like the first main wave that really brings Web3 to the mainstream.
Yeah, I agree. And in some ways, the market hasn't actually changed that, right? The bear market, the North Star is still, can somebody build a Web3 product that anybody can use, right? That my dad or my auntie, whatever, can use, right? And the markets and FTX and everything else hasn't actually affected that in any way. Obviously, it affects some of the infrastructure and the funding that you can get. But I think there's still a lot of founders who've built companies previously outside of this space that are coming in now and thinking, okay, how can I use NFTs, or how can I build a game that's using some of the sort of infrastructure here, right? And so I think those projects are still being built. And I think he's absolutely right, Joseph, when he said that, like building a consumer product is still the goal, right, that we need to see. And that will obviously take some time, because most games take a year is quick, right? 2 years, 3 years, tens of millions of dollars, if not more, right? So this is for gaming to work, it's still early days. And so in some ways, you could potentially argue, again, if you want to be positive, that the market being slow gives founders who are building gaming projects much more time to actually build something, right?
Yeah, so for DeFiance Capital, we focus a lot more on application layer protocols and projects. We actually co-invest quite a lot together with Hash into a lot of gaming projects, Delphi as well. So we prefer retail-facing projects, and we are pretty bullish on Web3 gaming. Just published a Web3 gaming thesis around 1.5 months ago. Essentially, we are looking forward to games that are fun, able to bring in onboard thousands of users. So there are 3 particular projects they are looking forward to: Cypher, Aprion, and Stellar Fantasy. In Web3 gaming valuations, we have seen like Axie Infinity reaching the kind of valuations that traditional gaming company has never done before. Like Ubisoft is only valued at $8 billion. So we believe that there will be a Web3 gaming studio that will probably hit near where Axie Infinity has traded. But what we are looking for will be a good team that is able to build a great game, so they're able to bring in gamers who are not just after earning from, like, for example, like what Axie Infinity is doing. So this is our main thesis moving forward, and we believe that this will probably be one of the stronger narratives to come up before the next bull market resumes again.
Gotcha. Apparently, like all of us, we have the consensus about, pretty bullish about the application layer. I think it makes a lot of sense because last year, like the whole industry actually, like destroyed the fat protocol thesis, what USB just addressed like 6 years ago. So application layer is pretty important, no matter it is a Web2 native integrating into Web3 or it's a Web3 native project, right? Anything you guys want to add on?
I'd just say, like, I think investing in gaming is hard because there'll be like 3 or 4 games that will hopefully be like used by non-crypto people now, but there's like 50,000 games out there, right? So I think it's so tough, and what you're looking for is like a founding team that have done this previously, right? Unfortunately, I think it's very hard to be like, I don't know, 3 guys somewhere in Southeast Asia who've got no experience in gaming to build a game, right? I think that requires a lot of fortune. It's going to be the guys that have spent 10 years, building MMOs, or 10 years working for like a gaming company in the US, or someone who's got the industry experience and the contact book, right? So I think that's the difference between the games that we're looking for in the next 2 to 3 years versus, say, Axie and others that were obviously at the time they were unbelievable, and they paved the way for others to come and do this. But I think it's going to be like much more formalized in terms of what you see, like actual gaming studios that have raised 50, 100 million that are doing this stuff, and it will take them 2 or 3 years. So I think, I know everyone talks about this, has talked about gaming and crypto gaming for the longest time. I think we're getting closer, but it's still like 1 or 2 years probably. These guys probably know more than me because they've done more gaming deals, but just from what I see, it's hard. There's like so many games out there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because, speaking of gaming itself, it's very hard to get the game succeed even in the traditional space. So, and we are now in crypto space.
The failure rate for like traditional games is like one of the highest. So like when you see like traditional funds trying to be like Web 2.5 fund, they usually avoid gaming.
Yeah, and I think the longer the bear market is, I think the more explosive the bull market is. Founders are not being overly rushed to launch a token. They're not rushing to release the product. They're doing everything slowly, gradually. And I think by the time the next uptrend comes, I think crypto will be in a much better position. Yeah.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Yeah, so we are running out of time. So thanks you guys for, sharing the valuable thoughts when you guys are, playing the key roles in this industry and have a lot of inside information. So yeah, also thanks everyone for listening. Thank you.
ขอเสียงปรบมือให้กับ speakers ของเราทุกคนนะคะ So I'd like to invite the host